that tension, that conflict was what made the records what they were. And it wasn't fun at the time. And we did go at each other's throats with homicidal intent.
Every Breath You Take is a big song, like massive, possibly the biggest song ever. In 2019, BMI, that's Broadcast Media Inc., reported that it was the most played song on radio in American history. It was a top 10 hit in over 20 countries, selling more than 1 million copies in the US, where it held the #1 spot for 8 weeks. It achieved massive success in the UK too, and earned a massive pile of awards, including multiple Grammys, an Ivor Novello, and several others. Despite the mind-blowing success though, the song was a point of contention for the band. The recording process was full of tension and fights between Stewart Copeland and Sting, and they both have interesting opinions on the final product. So what's the full story behind this song? And if you love delving into music history like I do, make sure to subscribe and join our pack. Sting wrote Every Breath You Take in 1982, after he separated from his first wife, Frances Tomelty. It's easy to think this could have been the inspiration behind the sinister or stalky tones of the song's lyrics. The split was largely due to an affair between Sting and Trudy Styler, one of Tomelty's friends, whom he later married. Now, this of course created a huge media frenzy around Sting, so to escape it all, he retreated to Jamaica, to the former home of Ian Fleming.
It was in 1982, and Ian Fleming's house. Ian Fleming's desk was there, and at night I would sit and try and write songs. And I think there's some of the spirit of James Bond in this song because it's so ambiguous. You know, it's a love song, but it's also quite sinister.
Story goes, while he was there in Jamaica, he woke up one night with the song and the lyrics pretty much in his head. He sat down at a piano straight away and had the song finished in half an hour. Sting actually explained in 1985 to International Music and Recording World, that song is about surveillance and ownership, possession, jealousy, emotions that we all have. And Sting admits himself that the tune is generic and unoriginal.
I think it's my most successful song, and probably better known than any others. And yet it's not in the least bit original. It has a standard chord sequence, which is probably nicked off Stand By Me.
And he also believes the lyrics aren't particularly creative either.
So it's not original. The lyrics you could get from a rhyming dictionary, make, take, fake, wake. And yet it has something about it that people respond to. And that it seems at first like a very romantic, kind of seductive song, which is what I initially intended it to be. But then when you listen to it, you realize there's a compulsion behind it, to the point of obsession where it becomes quite sinister.
And it's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? When you have such sinister lyrics, like Every Breath You Take, Every Move You Make, I'll Be Watching, coupled with quite a warm and inviting melody. It confuses the interpretation of the overall song. Sting later said he's surprised at how many people interpret Every Breath You Take as a positive song. He clarified that it is in fact about obsession, jealousy, and the fixation on a lost lover. He also tells the story of a couple who told him that Every Breath You Take was their wedding song, to which he replied, "Good luck." When he returned to the UK from Jamaica, he went into Utopia Studios in North London late one night in 1982, where he recorded a demo of the track, working with engineer Pete Smith. He decided to base the music in the 9th chords that had already been successful in songs like Message in a Bottle, and this sort of became Sting's signature at the time. According to Sting on Instagram in 2019, as most rock music is based on 4ths, 5ths, and 7ths, the 9th chord opened up a different world of possibilities, and gave this rather simple and strange song a tonal sophistication that it wouldn't have possessed otherwise, effectively complementing its lyrical ambiguity. Now, as demos go, this one was quite simple. It was essentially just Sting singing over an organ with a drum track.
Every breath you take, and every move you make.
Stewart Copeland would later say it was odd for Sting to create such a simple demo. In 2003, he told Mix Online, "By then we all had home studios, so we'd show up with these fully mastered demos. In the case of Every Breath, what he brought to the band was much more simple. So we did a lot to it, as we did in the early days. Every Breath You Take evolved from that demo in London to what we know the song as today through, let's call it a challenging recording process. It was recorded at Air Studios, owned by George Martin of Beatles fame, on the island of Montserrat. Speaking of the Beatles, by the way, you could win an all-expenses Beatles-themed trip to London and Liverpool. The film Midas Man is getting a global release. This is the brilliant Brian Epstein biopic that came out this year. It was #1 on UK Amazon Prime, and it's now releasing to the rest of the world in 2025. So if you want to win that all-expenses-paid Beatles-themed trip to London and Liverpool, you can pre-order the film right now. Go to the link in the description to find out more.
How was that, Mr. Martin?
I think there's some promise.
Some promise.
Back to it then. Hugh Padgham, who had also produced the Police's previous album, Ghost in the Machine, oversaw the sessions. According to him, by the time of Synchronicity, they were sick of each other. Sting and Stewart hated each other. And although Andy didn't show as much venom, he could be quite grumpy. And there were both verbal and physical fights in the studio, although Copeland would later deny any physical violence between them. Now, the relationship between Sting and Copeland had become incredibly strained by this point. They both wanted to control the direction of the band, and they had intense creative differences, and this would cause working together in the studio to be incredibly difficult. They couldn't be in the same room together. Literally, a lot of the recording process for Synchronicity involved one working in the morning and one working in the afternoon, completely separate from each other. Copeland told The Guardian, "We had a great bond, which wasn't strong enough to make recording together very easy. We tore each other's throats out in the studio, but those two came up with incredible stuff, and we got on really well on stage, in the van, on the plane. To this day, we still send each other dumb Instagram clips. It's a myth that Sting and I fought all the time. I broke his rib once, but we were play fighting." Hugh Padgham tried to mediate the band's fighting during recording sessions, but they would turn on him, making things even worse. And put yourself in Hugh's shoes. He was just plonked into the middle of all of this. These guys had been with each other day and night for 5-6 years, had become one of the biggest rock bands in the world. They had a significant history, and they knew each other very well. As a producer, Hugh had to try and control them somehow. Try to keep them focused on their work rather than hissing at each other. It's a tough job for anyone. An example of this tension can be found in the drum part of the song, which we'll go into more detail on later. But Sting wanted a simple, straightforward drum rhythm with no fills. The complete opposite of what Copeland wanted to do. He wanted to make it his own. And this would cause really heated back and forth throughout the whole process. It was this tension that would eventually lead to the band breaking up in the mid-80s. It got so bad that Hugh called his manager to tell him he couldn't handle it. The tension was through the roof, and they'd worked full on for 10 days without anything usable on tape. It was a disaster. One thing was certain though, Every Breath You Take was going to be a hit. From listening to Sting's demo, everyone knew the song was going to be big. So the pressure was on Hugh to turn this demo into something usable. According to Andy Summers, the song was close to being thrown out. Sting and Stewart couldn't agree on how the bass and drums were going to work on the track. It wasn't until Summers stepped in that things started to take shape. So he binned the organ from the demo, picked up his guitar, and quickly worked out the song's arpeggiated guitar figure.
And we got back after lunch and we were all sitting there like, very down. What are we going to do? He goes, go on, go in there, make it your own. So, it's a pretty simple chord sequence, A, F sharp, R, D. It's nothing to it. It's really simple and straight right there. So I went in and, okay, one take. I just played the whole song like that. They all stood up and applauded in the room, the recording room. And then the manager turned and went, "What's that? That's going straight to number one." And it was one song, we were going to abandon it. We weren't even going to keep it on the album. And once I played that guitar line, that was it.
Now, whether Andy is embellishing here is unclear, but it is clear that Summers took this song to a whole new level. He is undoubtedly the unsung hero that made this song what it is. His guitar part, influenced by composer Bela Bartok, carries this incredibly smooth, soothing, warm quality, a complete contrast to the lyrics, which is why it works so well. For the drums, Sting knew early on that it would need a very simple treatment. Less is more. However, according to Hugh Padgham, Copeland didn't quite agree with this. This is what Hugh told Classic Pop in 2018. If Stewart couldn't be the Police's hit writer anymore, he wanted to show off his drumming skills. One morning, he came in and said, "I've got an idea. I want to overdub a hi-hat on Every Breath You Take." We got the hi-hat out, it's played on the song, Stewart goes skiing at lunchtime, and Sting comes in going, "Okay, what rubbish did you do this morning?" I played him the new mix with the hi-hat, and Sting went, "That's awful, get rid of it, it's my song, I hate it." And of course, Stewart comes in the next day going, "Where's my hi-hat?" In the end, the drum part for Every Breath You Take was quite unique for the Police. It was carefully constructed through a series of overdubs, rather than being played live. Stewart Copeland explained that each element of the drums, like the snare, the kick, the hi-hat, was recorded separately, rather than being played together in one take. So this was really unusual for the Police. The creation of the drum track led to significant disagreements between Copeland and Sting, particularly over the hi-hat sound. Sting had become attached to the hypnotic quality of the synthesized Oberheim hi-hat from the demo, while Copeland was determined to play the hi-hat himself. This disagreement just fueled the tensions and created this prolonged back and forth during the production, and ultimately, the final version incorporated elements of both approaches, blending the electronic and live hi-hat into the mix. Copeland was eventually able to take pride in the simplicity and minimalist design of the drum part, describing it as very zen. After a grueling recording process, the track was eventually finished, and of course, it performed exceedingly well. Every Breath You Take became a massive hit, topping the charts in both the UK and the US for a record-breaking run in 1983. But what did Sting and Copeland think of the final product? Because Copeland isn't a massive fan of the arrangement of the song. He told Revolver in 2000, "In my humble opinion, this is Sting's best song with the worst arrangement. I think Sting could have had any other group do this song and it would have been better than our version, except for Andy's brilliant guitar part. Basically, there's an utter lack of groove. It's a totally wasted opportunity for our band. Even though we made gazillions off it, and it's the biggest hit we ever had." And Sting said this in 2011. "To me, it has this double-edged thing, and I think it's pretty powerful. Sometimes I'll spend months on a song making it very technical musically and technical lyrically, and I didn't get anywhere. Sometimes the simplest songs are the best. Being simple is not easy though." Now for another song that's soaked in tension and fighting, go and watch my video about the creation of The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. It's over there.